All right, everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of May 22nd to the 28th of 2023. All right, so this week we are coming off of a new moon from around Friday of last week. So we are building momentum this week for the lunar month, building energy, increasing energy as we go through the week. Once we do get to the weekend on Saturday, it will be the first quarter moon, suggesting good to really challenge ourselves to implement those new beginnings. The first quarter is typically where we come to our first challenges of the lunar month, but more importantly, challenging ourselves to move forward any new perspectives or quite literally new things that have come into our life since last Friday. We have two main aspects here this week. Early in the week, Mars, the planet of assertiveness, will be squaring up to expansive Jupiter. This is part of the T-square that we already had last week involving Pluto. So here, perhaps feeling a bit of the post-transformation coming out of last week's more transformative or deeper energy. And here coming into the week, maybe feeling a bit buoyant, maybe a bit assertive, maybe a bit proactive, very independent, and maybe even confident with that square to Jupiter. But it is good to balance this out as squares do tend towards over and under extremes. And so finding constructive ways to implement that fiery nature of Mars is going to be important. Then towards the end of the week, we have the Sun squaring up to grounding Saturn. That's going to be around Sunday. So with this one, a bit of patience and seeing the long road, a bit of discipline can be great. And channeling that into anything we do want to focus on can be a good way of working with that one. All right, so there's other minor aspects. So let's go and take a look at all of this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here is the sky for this week. We're going to look at this for each day of the week, starting first with Monday, May 22nd. And as you can see, we are using the visible sky on this channel, which is very different from mainstream astrology, which only uses an even 30 degrees for all the constellations. For example, they shrink Taurus, which is much larger in the sky, and they expand Gemini and Cancer to make them closer to 30 degrees. So that does skew the sky. And so on this channel, you will notice a lot of the signs are different than mainstream astrology. And so if you are new, definitely check out that link down below for more information. All right, so let's do a bit of a recap to see where everything is coming into the week. We haven't had any real sign changes since last week, but it's always good to see where things are continuing to be implemented. So we do have the Sun in Taurus. That is where the last new moon was. And so it's all about this week being new beginnings with developing our inner and outer resources, right? Taurus, the bull, is about connecting to our inner resources like our self-reliance, our inner strength, self-value, self-worth, even our natural talents and abilities. And then that can externalize into enjoying and connecting to the abundances or the external values of life. And so good time to be maybe focused on cultivating resources, connecting to nature, enjoying the simple life. This is always great with the time of the year with the Sun in Taurus. Now, building momentum out of that, of course, we'll be seeing that energy increasing throughout the week there. Then Mercury, who's recently gone direct, is still in fiery Aries, now implementing a lot of the reflection and redoing that we've had here. Aries has been about reconnecting with our fiery side when it specifically comes to our communications and it comes to how we think about things. And so continuing to implement now a bit of a fiery communication in the sense of directness, assertiveness, proactivity there, of course. And just in general, putting some of that fire maybe into learning or using our minds in some way can be a fantastic way of now working with this Mercury, who is in his full forward direction now. Venus in Mercury's sign of Gemini, which is about learning. Venus suggests what we can value and how we can connect to things. And so it's a great time to be enjoying and connecting to the communicative aspects of life, especially in those relationships, as Venus often is associated with that. And just again, in general, picking up that book, maybe doing some reading or writing can be very enjoyable and a great way of connecting at the moment. Mars is in Cancer, so when it does come to that assertive side, really good to do so in a way that is a bit healthfully protective. Okay, Cancer is all about creating that safe and secure environment for ourselves and others. Cancer, the crab, it's the shell. And so it is very protective. And it's in its highest expression can be very caring and nurturing. And so finding those healthy ways to be, assertive and to pursue our goals and our intrinsic values in life in a way that's healthfully expressing, our emotions, what's important to us emotionally, who and what's important to us. Again, creating that protective environment really is where we're letting out that more fiery nature, or can be at the moment, which is a bit difficult because Mars is not comfortable in Cancer at all. But again, connecting with our emotions and feelings can help facilitate that process, for example, and who and what's important to us emotionally. All right, so in terms of the aspects, it looks like a lot more than it actually is. A lot of these aspects are coming out of last week. Okay, again, the way I would summarize this is coming out of the real Pluto energies of the transformative last week, deeper last week, which now this week is going to feel a lot of coming out of the butterfly, in a sense, out of the cocoon, and slowly emerging as we build momentum in this brand new lunar cycle since Friday. And it's nice to see that Mars is in good harmony with the Sun coming into Monday. So a bit of that fiery or assertive nature can come across a bit easier. At least it's available, to work with healthfully early in the week. But as we get into, really still early, as we get into the later Monday and into Tuesday, that fiery Mars will be in a square up to Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is a benefic, so this typically does come across as quite positive. Jupiter tends to help us cultivate the more jovial and optimistic and inspiring side of things. Okay, and so with Mars, again, it can be really expanding upon some of that initiative, some of that assertiveness, some of that independence. Okay, but because it's a square and Jupiter can over extreme or even under extreme things, it can be a bit like a pendulum. And so if we aren't healthfully implementing constructive assertiveness and independence in our life, for example, then then that pendulum can swing. Then we might be super optimistic one time about what we can do or how we're expressing ourselves or asserting ourselves, but then as the pendulum does swing really far into that maybe overconfident or over-inspired zone, then of course the pendulum will swing to the other end, which might be not confident, not assertive, when we can be. So by doing it consciously and constructively, it centers the pendulum. And so here, being intentional with doing things proactively, being independent constructively, expressing our needs healthfully, really helps that get balanced out. And in this way, it can be an excellent time for anything that does require that fiery nature, whether it's physical activity, whether it's goal setting, whether it's following some of these inspirations that Jupiter can provide. It can be a very constructive time when utilized intentionally there like that. Okay, so that's going to be really this whole early part of the week, apexing around the late Monday and early Tuesday time period. Now the moon will be in Gemini these couple days, and so it's worth noting that there could be some themes around that learning and communication that could be good to work with Monday and Tuesday. All right, and Wednesday we have a bit of a minor aspect of Venus, the planet of those values and relationships. We'll be in a square up to healing Chiron, so maybe there's some things that we can do in those one-on-one connections or relating with others that can be quite healing or therapeutic. Or seen the other way, we could be enjoying a bit of healing, okay? But it is a square, so it's definitely going to be something that's outside of our comfort zone and something that might require a little bit of intention to do. But if healing is your thing, and if you notice any openings to do so on Wednesday, again, there can be a great opportunity to do that intentionally there with that square, but nothing major. As we do get into that Wednesday time period, the moon will be in Cancer. Okay, so that's activating where Mars is, that more protective side. How can we healthfully connect to our emotions, feelings, and be protective for ourselves and those close to us? Particularly Wednesday and early Thursday would be great. As we do get into late Thursday and really for the rest of the week, the moon will be in fiery Leo. And this is a square, so this is where we're coming up to that first quarter moon. And so in a sense, it is challenging to integrate this expressive Leo. Leo is all about playfulness, fun, creativity, is very different from grounded, resourceful Taurus. Okay, so they're not terribly challenging signs or anything like that, but they're just very different from each other. So while we're continuing this lunar month of, again, cultivating our inner and outer resources and more of that grounded and stable approach to things, how can we do so while still being playful, fun-loving, creative, right? Getting into some of that expressive Leo energy. And in that way, it becomes very constructive. This is the part of the lunar cycle that, as I said, we do come to our first challenges of the lunar month. That started, since the new beginning, since last Friday. And so anything that we can do to challenge ourselves to implement essentially that fire with the earth, right? The groundedness with the inspiration and passion. Then it becomes very, very constructive. So could be a great week for that. Again, setting intentions around those types of things, I think, are great. Okay, and again, Moon and Leo for the rest of the week there. And when we do get to Friday, there's a little bit of an opening for enjoying a bit of spontaneity, maybe a bit of doing things a little bit outside of our comfort zone a little bit, maybe again in those one-on-one connections. Venus will be sextiling up to spontaneous and outside the status quo Uranus. So nothing major, but an opening there to enjoy some of that, mainly Friday, maybe even the later Thursday time period. Okay, then the last aspect of the week with that Moon and Leo, we do have the Sun, the ruler of Leo, which rules self-expression, in a bit of a square with Saturn. And so Saturn does tend to densify things a little bit and helps us see really the reality of things. Now, it's good not to get too dense or too much into the reality to where it becomes limiting, but it could be good to healthfully, again, with squares, healthfully be intentional with the reality of things, right? With a bit of discipline, patience, responsibility, wherever you want to channel that into. And this can be, again, very constructive. The Sun is our vital life force. It is what we're focused on. It is what we can be implementing. And Saturn's going to help us do it in such a way that is mature and responsible. So anything that is more on that level and channeling some of that creative or expressive energy in that responsible, mature way, I think is, again, a great way of working with the square. So we do have quite a few squares this week, but again, the Jupiter one is definitely more on the benefic side, so that's going to come across as a little bit more jovial, maybe even inspirational. But with the first quarter moon and with these squares, yes, I think it's a good week to be intentional and to constructively work with the energy in a way that you feel is healthy and balanced for you. Okay, early in the week with that fiery nature, towards the end of the week, just in general, with the lunar cycle being in the first quarter, to challenge ourselves in general, especially with any new beginnings since last Friday or new perspectives since last Friday. And then at the very end of the week on Sunday, with that grounding Saturn, with that responsibility, maturity, patience, perseverance, things of that nature. Okay, so all in all, looks like a lot more than there actually is this week with the aspects. But yeah, it can be a very constructive week when working with those squares intentionally. All right, so everyone have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click the like button if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're not yet signed up for MTZ Insiders, it is a free newsletter where you do get these videos released first before YouTube and extra content not normally released on YouTube. So if you're not yet signed up, definitely do so down below. But again, have a great week, everyone, and I'll see you all next time for the next astrology forecast. Take care.